Wubba lubba dub dub! Welcome back. In this segment, we're going to be talking about join commands. And you're probably thinking to yourself, we've done join commands before. We've looked at joining fields when we're making a query and returning results from two different tables. And you're right, we have done that. And when we did that, that particular join by default is what we refer to as an inner join. And so when we use that type of join, again, that's just the default join, we're matching records that are in both tables. But there are more options to that. So if you remember when we used just the join function, we used the where clause. We said select this column and this column from these two tables where, all right, let me use a specific example. That might be a little more helpful, right? All right, so I'll create a new query, SQL, and I'll select, I'll use as an example similar to one I used a long time ago. So I'll select project ID client name, there you go. And then I'll combine a couple fields here. First name plus a space plus last name, and I'll just rename that as name from, that doesn't matter, employees, clients, and projects. And then here's where the join statement came in. We didn't actually use the keyword join, but this is how we join the tables together, right? Projects client ID is equal to client ID, and projects.employee ID. Nope, didn't have that there. Okay. Employee ID is equal to employee ID. All right, so the field I'm going to select, project ID, right? So I'm just going to get a list of every project that exists in the project ID table. So essentially every project that is there. And then I'm going to get the client name. And then I'm going to get the employee that's working on that project. So project ID, the client that project belongs to, and then the employee that's working on that project. So 3 different tables, employees, clients, and projects. And I'm joining the tables by saying, that doesn't say client either. Look at the projects tables and all the client IDs that are listed in the projects table. Only give me the records where there's a match for the client ID in projects, where there's also a match for the client ID in clients. So clients is obviously going to have every single client ID, but projects.client ID is only going to give me the clients that have active projects. And so by doing this, this allows me to get the client ID that have projects associated with them, and then I can, from that, by doing that, I can pull the client name field. And same with the employee ID. I look at the projects table, I see which employee ID exists in the projects table, and then I match that to the employee ID in the employees table. Again, in the employees table, it's going to have every employee ID. But I only want the employee ID that has a project associated with it, so that's why I'm going to say only the ones that are equal, and then give me those fields that I asked for up here. So I run that, good. I get every single project ID, every single project that we're working on, and then I pull that client name, right, from the clients table, and then again the other field that I created, first name and last name, that I'm pulling from the employees table, and then I just gave it an alias, right? So that's how we joined the tables together, with the where clause. When we do that, that is the same exact thing as an inner join. It's the same type of join. So I'm going to show you that, and then we're going to talk about the other different types of join. So I'm going to change this a little bit. So I'm still going to select the same fields. I'm still doing it. That's bugging me. I'm still doing it from the same tables, same 3 tables. But now, instead of a where clause, instead of the where clause, I'm going to use inner join, and I'm going to say inner join projects. And then I still need to match the corresponding fields, set them to equal, right? That's how it's only going to show me only the records that exist in both tables, or in this case, all 3 tables. So inner join projects on project client ID, project employee ID, and match them to client ID on clients and employee ID on employees. So, unfortunately, it's not that simple of a change. It would be nice if this would run just like that by simply making that small little change, but there is a little more that we need to do to it. In this, so I kind of picked a bad example here because I'm joining 3 tables, so it makes it a little more complicated. But when I show you the other joins, I'll show you how. I'll only use 2, so you'll see that it's not that complicated. But in order to get this to actually run, I'm going to have to first get rid of these. I'm going to say just from projects. I want to inner join clients. Let me grab that. And then I'm going to say on projects, yep, client ID, clients, right? So projects, joining it to clients, projects, joining it to clients. So that should make sense. And then, well, the way we need to do this for 3 tables is we're going to have a whole nother join statement. Inner join. And since we did clients, now we just need to do employees. And then on projects, yep, still doing it from projects, joining it to employees, so projects and employees. All right, so the last change that I need to make, this change is only because of Microsoft Access. That's kind of just the way Microsoft Access works. It forces you to kind of use these weirdly placed parentheses inside of the from, because we're joining multiple tables, right? You probably thought it was weird that I took away clients and employees up here, saying, you know, because from is essentially where I select the tables. So I throw in the parentheses there, and now it should run. Fingers crossed. Okay, good. So, and we can see that it gives me the same results that I did before. A little too complicated probably, but In the previous example, we used the where clause, where clause, and it gave us the same results as when I switch and use the inner join, right? The same exact thing. So by default, when you join tables using the where clause, that's what it's doing, is an inner join. And so what the inner join means is essentially it's only returning the records. Let me go back to SQL, where records match in both tables. So I mentioned that there are other types of joins, right? That is an inner join. We also have, of course, an outer join, but we'll cover that kind of at the end, right? And then we have a left and right join. So inner join only shows the records that have matching values on both tables, right? Makes sense. Outer join, just the opposite. It shows records, all the records in both of the tables. So they don't have to match, it's just gonna show you everything. Lottie-dottie, everybody, right? And then we have left and right join. So inner join shows you only the records that match. Outer join shows you records, it shows you all the records for both sides. Left join shows you all the records for the left side and only the ones that match on the right side. And then the right join is just the opposite. Shows you only the records that match on the left side and all the records that match on the right side. And so what do I mean by left and right side? Well, it's just think about the term one-to-many, because that's the type of relationship that we have. So if we do a left join, the left, the one, is going to show you all the records, right? On the right side, and the one-to-many, that's the many, right? Left, one. So when I say look at the term one-to-many, I mean like the actual word one-to-many. The word one is on the left, the word many is on the right. So that's the best way to remember it. The left join is going to show you all the records on the left side, the word one, the one part of the relationship, the primary key. The right join is going to show you all the records on the right side, the many word, the foreign key. So I hope that makes sense. 4 types of joins. Inner join, all the records must match between both tables. Left join, show you all the records on the left, only the ones that match on the right. Right join shows you all the records on the right, only the ones that match on the left. And then outer join, all the records on both sides. And again, left side being one, right side being many, because that's the type of a relationship that we have. All right, so let's take a look at these different joins. I'm going to simplify this a little bit and just use 2 tables. I'll still grab the first and last name, and then we'll see which projects they're working on. So that, and then we'll grab project ID. Dang it. All right, whatever. I'm leaving it. I hate caps locks. So change this to employees, and then instead of an inner join, we're gonna do a left join on projects. And then we want essentially this line right here. So I'll just do this. All right, so I'm going to grab first and last name. I'll still create my custom field, name it name. I'll grab their project ID. So I'm grabbing it from the employees table. I'm left joining it to the projects table. So what this should do is, because in the employees table and in the projects table, right, the field that we are matching is employee ID. And I'm going to switch these just to make it easier for you guys. employees ID exists in both tables, so that's the field that we're using. We're joining these two tables together. So because we're doing a left join, right, the employee ID field is the primary key for the employee. So that's the one part of the relationship. Employee ID is the foreign key in projects. So that is the many part of the relationship. So again, left join is all records on the left, all records on the one side of the relationship, and then only the matching records on the right side of the relationship, the many sides of the relationship. So that's why I switched these. So when I run this, it should show me every single employee ID and then match up any employee ID that has a project. It should show me that project ID for any employees that have a project. But what we're going to see that's different is we should see employees that do not have any projects. So the project ID field will be blank, right? With the inner join, we're only showing ones that matched on both sides. But now with the left join, we're seeing all the employees and the project ID that are matched to those employees. So because we're seeing all the employees, even if they don't have a project, we're still going to see them. So that's why the project ID field will be blank. Let's run this. Forgot my keyword on here. That helps. Try this again. Good, perfect. So, I created a custom name. That's funny. All right, so we see the employees, we see all the employees, right? And we see them multiple times because some of them have multiple projects, right? So, but we're seeing every single employee, even the ones that don't have projects, like these lazy people here. So that is a left join. So let's take a look at a right join. Well, this one's going to be super simple, right? We just need to change left to right. So now this is going to show us all of the records on the right side, the many side, in this case, the project ID. And it will show us only the employees that match. So, good. So there's every single project ID and the associated employees that go along with it. So we're seeing a right join, right? The one-to-many relationship. The right join, the many, because the word is on the right, one-to-many, many is on the right. We're seeing all of them, but we're only seeing the matching side on the one side of the relationship, the left. So that is a difference between the left and the right join. All right, so the last one, the outer join, the full outer join, really what this is just a union of both the left join and the right join. So essentially we're just going to get all the records from both sides, even if there are no matches. So we got our right join there. So then I just need to do a union, and we need to specify all in this case when we want a full outer join. And then I'm just going to copy this, copy pasta, switch this to left, and that should give us everything, full outer join. Good. So we got all the records on the right, project ID 1 through 30, and we got all the records on the left, every single employee. So that is a full outer join, and you can see in there lots of spaces, right? So we, even if there's no matches, that's how that works. So there's your 4 joins: inner join by default, left join, right join, and full outer join. again, with these types of joins, we're just looking at pulling all the records from one side of the table. The one side, the left side, the primary key, or the right side, the many side, the foreign key, or both, which is the full outer. So, excellent. So if you ever create a relationship and you try to enforce referential integrity, which we talked about in our last segment, if there are orphan records that exist, it will give you an error because, as I mentioned, the whole point of referential integrity is that it does not allow for orphan records. So if you try to make that relationship and enforce referential integrity and get a message that looks like this, that's because you have an orphan record, meaning that you have a record in the child table, essentially the many side of the table, the foreign key, but there's no record in the parent table, the primary key, right? So in the case of employees and projects, right? Employee, if we're talking about the employee ID field, the employee table is the parent, the projects is the child, because the primary key of employee ID is employee table, and the foreign key of projects is the employee ID in the projects table. So an orphan record in that case would be a project that exists in the projects table with the project with an employee ID that does not exist in the employee table. That would be an example of an orphan record. And so the best way to go through and try and find any orphan records is to use a right join, because again, that's going to show you all the records from the right hand side, the many side. So that's the child side, right? The many side. So you'll be able to see if there are any orphan records, because you'll see a record on the right hand side, but then you'll see nothing on the left hand side, just like we saw when we were in the example of the right join, right? If I just remove all this again and run this, we don't have any in this case, but if I deleted, say, Miguel right here, and then I ran this join, it would show me that. It would still show me this record because it's showing me all the right hand side, even if Miguel didn't exist, if he was gone. That would be an orphan record, and that right join would show me that. So that is how we scrub the database. We go through, do a right join, look for any orphan records, and then we can take appropriate action on that. So, all right, so that was a lot of information on join commands. We've used join before through the where clause, but now we've looked at using the inner join, which is the same thing, and then left and right join, and a full outer join. So I hope this was useful to you guys. I know it was a lot of information, but it's good information. So if you are stuck or need help or anything like this, feel free to rewatch the video. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help. But I hope you guys were able to get something out of this. So I want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.